in a pub over in Glasgow. And here on Radio Free Eireann, we've always drawn the connections between Scotland and particularly the 6 counties with the Scottish Republican flute bands that come over and play at the commemorations. And that brings us to the Easter commemorations that are held throughout the world. You could be in Australia, New Zealand. Republicans get together and they read the proclamation and they read a statement from the Republican movement. But an aberration that's been going on for the past 2 years has been going on in Derry, where last year Marian Price, who was at the Easter commemoration held by the 32 County Sovereignty Committee, was arrested and is now looking at doing a life sentence in prison. And this Easter, I think 5 to 6 people arrested, 4 of them from the Billy Reid Republican flute band from Glasgow were arrested. And we're going to go to Gary Donnelly, a frequent guest here on Radio Free Eireann. As you know, he was arrested down in the 26 counties and held there for many, many months. He's been arrested numerous times in the 6 counties, had his arm broken by the PSNI, the new reform police force. But Gary, what is going on with these commemorations that are being held in Derry, that people are being arrested afterwards?
How you doing? Well, it seems to me that if you look at who was arrested after it, there was 6 people arrested. 5 of them were in one car, and 4 of them were Scottish Republicans. The driver of the car, is a disabled gentleman. And then we had another individual who was taking away the speaker system and the PA system. I talked to 2 of those people, 2 of them from Derry. I haven't talked to the Scottish men, but they basically were being questioned. What they were being questioned about was a load of nonsense, and it's their opinion, in my opinion, that the arrests were part of a publicity coup rather than a serious attempt to charge anybody.
But also, I mean, if you're coming over from Glasgow and you want to attend a commemoration, you would have to have second thoughts about coming over because, you know, a lot of these guys work. They want to get back, take the ferry from, Lauren to Stranraer and get back to Glasgow and work. You would say, listen, if I go to this Easter commemoration in Derry, I'm going to be held for a couple of days. I'm jammed up in jail, and it doesn't look good at your place of work.
Definitely. No, These men were surrounded by, I've been told, 6 armoured personnel vehicles. They contained dozens of heavily armed British police officers carrying assault rifles. They were handcuffed and taken off to an interrogation suite. Now, the interrogation there was no real interrogation, but they were held overnight, and then when they were released, they had missed their flights home. And when they eventually got new flights and landed in Scotland, they were then held again under the Terrorism Act by Scottish anti-terror officers and held for, I think it was another few hours. And in fact, I've heard that one of the guys has actually lost his job, so he's lost his employment over this. So you could be right, it could be, it seems to be a deliberate tactic in trying to, you had the arrest last year, imprisonment of Marian Price. And now you have the rest of people who, basically totally and absolutely innocent. And it could be as a deterrent to stop people from coming to Ireland or taking part in commemorations which, commemorate the dead. And
what happened with the sound system? Did they confiscate that and keep that, or did you get that back?
No, well, what happened was that one of the other people who were arrested, an other Derry man, he had collected the sound system. He put it in the bit of his trunk of his car, and he had been travelling home. On the way home, he stopped at a convenience store. He had his 13-year-old son with him, and he too was surrounded by the British police. They arrested him, they seized his car, and left his 13-year-old son standing at the side of the road. I think it was when somebody come along then and seen what was happening, organised a taxi for his young son to go home. He since got his car back, but minus the PA system. So, it's obviously a serious attempt to try and disrupt, the organisation.
And what's the reason for holding the PA system, and can you get it back? Because that is a huge expense. And I know if you're with an organization, it's a prize thing, because anytime you hold a rally or a demonstration, I mean, you need that sound system, particularly you're in the cemetery, you have a large crowd, people are giving speeches. I mean, what was the rationale for holding the equipment, and can you get it back?
Well, there is no rationale of it. Obviously, apart from disruption, but this isn't a new thing. We've had members of the Saturday movement in Derry who have had their homes searched by the police. They've confiscated maybe a work van, they've confiscated their work tools, they've confiscated an address book. It's all part of a campaign to cause as much harassment, as much inconvenience as possible. If people can't work, they can't pay their mortgage. If they can't pay their mortgage, they end up out on the street, and this is, there's a long list of things, and this is just one more that confiscate PA systems, confiscate anything whatsoever under the terrorism laws. It's a harassment, it's an inconvenience thing rather than a serious attempt to bring charges.
Now, Gary, I was watching the BBC during the week, and I see former Republicans. They were on TV, and you think they might speak up about what's going on with Marian Price or about the arrest of 6 people from Scotland. I watched Barry McElduff, who's a provisional Sinn Féin councillor from County Tyrone, and his big thing of the week was that the Irish tricolour wasn't flying on top of Stormont, and he was tabling a motion up at Stormont, the British Parliament in Ireland, and this seemed to be the big issue of the day, and he was complaining that the Unionists are putting up the portraits of the Queen of England because of her Queen's Jubilee. So he is fighting the good fight up in Stormont, trying to get this flag flying on top of Stormont, and trying to stop the Unionists from putting up the Queen of England up on the walls.
Well, I think what Barry and them are doing in Stormont is just basically tokenism for Republicans on the ground. Even having the tricolour flying alongside the British flag means nothing to the people on the ground. Do you know what I mean? It's just tokenism. But you will get these politicians who will cry crocodile tears for Marian Price. But the reality is, here in this city alone, last week there's been a number of comments posted by Over Sinn Féin, who is Sinn Féin youth movement, and they've basically been mocking Marian Price. And not only have they been mocking Marian Price, they have been making derogatory comments about Brian Shivers. So anybody who knows Brian Shivers will know that Brian is terminally ill, and that the last few years that Brian has left in his life will be spent in McGarvey prison, being tortured by British prison officers, and having to endure a dirty protest. So rather than Sinn Féin or their leadership taking any action against their youth movement for putting these remarks up on a social network site, they've just completely ignored.
And Gary, without getting into, say, exact details of what they're posting, what are they saying generally about Marian Price, who, along with the Minister of Justice for Sinn Féin, Jerry Kelly, planted a bomb at the Old Bailey in London, was in hunger strike in England, and repatriated back to the 6 counties? I mean, in their mind, what is she doing wrong now that she's sitting back in jail?
Well, officially and in a statement, they will say Marian Price should be released. But all you need to do is scratch the surface of some of these younger Sinn Féin members. And these aren't, naive young. These are political activists, Ogre Sinn Féin activists, who, if you go onto their Facebook site, you will see them being photographed with Rin McCartney, with Jerry Adams, with Martin McGuinness, with Palestinians. They're very articulate. And when you see these comments then alongside this, criticising in particular Brian Shivers, about doing cartwheels with an oxygen tank, it's really disgusting, and it's been a talk of all the social network sites, and as yet, not one member of Sinn Féin has come forward, and the people involved haven't apologised, and I think that gives you an indication on how the provisional movement really view political prisoners such as Marian Price and Brian Shivers. But they will be forced to publicly on television, say that it's wrong and that she should be released. But they haven't yet had any sanctions on their youth wing, who, for some sadistic, some silly reason, have been gloating and making fun of political prisoners.
Gary, look, if they really want Marian out, it's very simple. You go to British and say, Marian's out or we're out of government. And I haven't seen any sign of that.
No. Well, when you look at it, when Peter Robson threatened to bring down that government because of a plastic badge, we were talking about changing the prison service badge, removing it. Peter Robson threatened to pull down the whole government over a plastic badge. But yet, so-called Republican politicians haven't had the gumption or the guts to put it up to the Brits, because they don't have the power that they pretend they have. It's basically an illusion. Like they tell people that they've got all these powers. Basically, what they're just puppets for.
Well, you know what, Gary? I know you're from Derry, but one of the powers that Provincial Sinn Féin has in Derry, they have now, and you are living in the cultural capital of the United Kingdom in Londonderry, and it seems the Loyalists are kicking up. And here's another big issue: they're putting out brochures, Provincial Sinn Féin, and just saying it's a cultural capital, and not mentioning that it's Londonderry, and not mentioning that it's in the United Kingdom. And they're telling everyone to celebrate this cultural happening that's going on in Derry, but failing to put in, you're in Londonderry, you're in the United Kingdom, and this is the city in the United Kingdom that is the cultural capital of the United Kingdom. So they're playing these silly little games by deleting certain words and trying to pretend, while they're getting the Queen's shilling and being paid to administer British rule in Ireland, that, you know what, if we don't put it on the brochures, maybe people will just think it's the cultural capital of Ireland.
Yes, but when you look at that's correct. It's like the PSNIRUC's UDR. This is clearly the United Kingdom City of Culture. That is the award that Derry has entered for. And that title has been given to Derry, Londonderry, as they call it, the United Kingdom City of Culture. Now, in the beginning, Maeve McLaughlin, who's a local Sinn Féin councillor in this city, made a comment that there will be tens of thousands of nationalists and Republicans in this city who will have problems with this. Then, all of a sudden, a number of weeks later, that was forgotten about, and Sinn Féin 100% totally endorsed this. Now, how do we go from tens of thousands of people having a problem with it to wholeheartedly supporting it? Obviously, Maeve got sanctioned and was told to be quiet and support it, because there's absolutely no way that they have addressed the issues that tens of thousands of nationalists could have had problems with it within a short period of time.
Well, Gary, thank you for coming on and keeping us updated about how dangerous it is to hold an Easter commemoration, which is held here in the Bronx and held all throughout this country, and held out in Australia and New Zealand and even over in London. And it seems the only place people are getting arrested is in Derry. So I have to think